Everyone can now see my screen. And the first thing I want to introduce you to is the eDAV mapping user guide, which is available on the website. So don't worry about taking down the URL now. I will share that with you in a follow-up email either tomorrow or on Thursday when I get a chance, along with the recording of this evening's training. The user guide is fantastic. It covers everything you need to know about eMapping and will be the basis for what I'm going to demonstrate for you this evening. It's always good to see the live demonstration rather than just having to read through the user guide yourself. It's available on the website and is a brilliant resource for both you and the young people whenever they're using the system. And it also goes into some of the more technical details that I won't touch on this evening. So, like I said, I'll share the URL in the follow-up email. So eMapping, what is it and why do we have it? So it's a fantastic tool to assist with mapping expeditions for your young people and for you as leaders and assessors. However, I must stress it is not a tool to replace the mapping you would teach in the classroom. It's important that traditional mapping is continued to be taught and that young people have the skills to read a hard copy map, use a compass and everything else that you would normally expect them to be able to do going on an expedition. It's also really important at this point to say the mapping system will produce printed maps for you that young people can take on expeditions, but they only cover a limited area and it would be very easy to walk off the edge of the map. So make sure again your young people have a map, a proper map in their rucksack and are prepared for all eventualities. Do not be depending solely on the map that is printed out of this system. So where do you find mapping? And it is housed in eDAV. So if you log into your eDAV account as an adult, mapping is here under the resources option. So your screen will look slightly different from mine. I have a regional administrator account, but your adult account will have resources here on the left hand side. And under resources, you have the option for mapping. And from here, you've got two options. You can access a map you've already created and one that you've already used, or you can create a new map. And we're going to start from scratch this evening. So we will call it and your map description. So it's important that you save the map as something you're going to remember. So go for Bronze Expedition Qualifying Day 1, 2021 or whatever. Do not call them map 1, 2 and 3 or you'll forever spend your life running around all these maps that you don't know what ties up with what. So really important you use names that are sensible and tell your young people to do the same. There's nothing worse than having maps emailed to you and trying to work out which team the maps relate to. So once you've set up your map, if you click create map, you need to say yes because it's going to open in a new window and your mapping tool should appear. Now it's important to say at this point, if nothing happens at this stage, it's most likely an issue with your settings around pop-ups. So again, check your settings before you panic and you should be able to open it from there. We've also heard of a few schools where they have a struggle to open it, and again, speak to your IT person in school and they should be able to work around that for you. So this is your mapping tool, and we'll begin with a quick tour of what's on the page. So we have the option here in the little bar to save, and the first advice I'm going to give you is save on a regular basis right the way through. If your internet drops off or something happens, you don't want to lose all the work you've already done. So make sure you save on a regular basis. You have the option to cancel, so if you want to come out of it. You have the option then to plot your route. And whenever you click plot, that will allow you to drop your pinpoints down. And again, I'll show you that in more detail later on. You have the option to undo. So when you're plotting your map, if you make a mistake, you can undo and it will allow you to go back, I think 4 or 5 steps back in what you're doing. It doesn't allow you to go back very far, so just keep an eye on what you're doing. You then have the little style option, so that allows you to have different colored lines plotted on your map, and again particularly helpful if you're working with multiple teams. It also allows you to adjust the thickness of the line, and someone pointed out the other day The very thick line makes it difficult to see what's underneath. So in terms of your paths or bridleways, so you might want to go for a slightly thinner line. And you also have the option to make your line more or less transparent. Again, particularly helpful if you have a route with lots of fine detail and you need to see what's happening underneath the line that's plotted on the map. You have the option for your grid reference, and it will show you the grid reference for wherever you've just clicked. And if you follow the little link here for buy the paper map, it will take you to the Ordnance Survey website to buy the paper map for the area which you have selected. And again, so what I'm telling you now is the version of the truth for users of the system in England, Scotland and Wales. For anybody in Northern Ireland, I'm going to show you how ours is slightly different in a moment. And one of the issues for us is if you click buy paper map, it doesn't do anything because it links through to Ordnance Survey UK, not Ordnance Survey Northern Ireland. So that's your grid reference option. You also have the option then to expand, which just expands your view and gets rid of lots of the stuff around the edges. You have the print option, and I'll demonstrate that in more detail later on once we have a route to print. If you're not sure what you're doing, you've got the help option. And again, it gives you some basic help and guidance, but I would recommend you go back to the main user guide that I'll share the link for. It gives you a lot more detail than that little help button. You have your scale slider here on the side, which lets you zoom in and out. Down here, as you slide, it'll show you the scale you're working to down here. And a summary of the route that you've plotted will appear here on the left-hand side of the screen. So this is the map as it appears for users in England, Scotland and Wales. And you also have the option up here to search for a particular location. And what you're searching for is either a postcode or a specific name. So you can't search for something like the Lake District. It won't recognize that search term, but you could search for Ambleside. And it will drop your little pin into Ambleside. You can also from here click more info, and that will give you the weather for that dropped pin for the next 5 days. So again, probably not hugely helpful at the planning stage, the weather option, but if you're in a few days before the expedition, it's always handy to be able to check quickly what the weather is going to be. And again, it also works as a postcode search. So if you pop in the postcode, it also takes you to that particular postcode. And again, for users in Northern Ireland, the search function based on postcode or place name doesn't work. So you can't search for Belfast or BT86AW. It won't take you anywhere. It's only tied up to the Ordnance Survey UK maps. So how do you toggle between the rest of the UK and Northern Ireland? Down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, we have the little option to toggle, and we have the option to go to the Northern Ireland leisure map. And for some unbeknown reason, it automatically takes you to Cookstown, which is the most unlikely expedition area you could come across. But you can just use your mouse to move your map and take you to wherever you want to go. So this evening, we'll go to the Mournes. The English maps are to a scale of 1 to 25,000, and the Northern Ireland maps are to a scale of 1 to 50,000. So again, in Northern Ireland, we have a slightly less quality in terms of what's available to us than the options in the rest of the UK. But again, for plotting your route and what we want it for in terms of producing a route card, it's perfectly acceptable, and actually it does a good job. So that's a quick overview of the system in terms of what's there. If you're based in England, Scotland and Wales, it's unlikely you'll be using the little toggle option to come to Ireland or to Northern Ireland, I should say. But for anybody in Northern Ireland, that's probably your first port of call. The other thing to say is the Northern Ireland map does not extend beyond the border. So you can't use this for Donegal, Wicklow. Again, that's a different set of maps. It's not available on the system. So it is limited to Northern Ireland. So what I'm going to start with is plotting a route and how you do that. And I think the easiest thing to do is a slight Blue Peter moment of what I prepared earlier, and then we'll extend the route on from what I already have. So what I'm going to show you now is how to import a map that you've saved elsewhere. And this could be a route that you've saved on your system for those people based in Northern Ireland from when we previously had mapping. If you've got routes saved from back in the day when this was a thing, they will still work. Those GPX files can still be uploaded into the system. Or if the young people or another leader emails you a GPX file, you can upload it. So what I'm going to do is if you click the button Import GPX, it will give you a warning to tell you anything you've done on the map will be overwritten. So if you've opened the map and you've started to plot something and then you decide you're going to import a GPX file, you will lose any work you've already done. So make sure you're doing this on a fresh map, not something with a route already plotted on it. So just ask you to acknowledge the fact that you're about to lose any work you've already done, because we don't want people being caught unawares. You choose your file and it'll open up your file explorer just as normal, and you should only be presented here with your file format .gpx, so they're mapping files. So select your map and open it up and click save, and it just takes a few minutes or a few seconds and your map appears. And again, if you're based in Northern Ireland and it's Northern Ireland route, doing that automatically switches you back onto the UK map. So you just need to click your Northern Ireland button again to get your map back. And as you can see, that has uploaded the route that I've already plotted on the map. So like I said, that might be a route you've already saved, or it might be a route that your young people or another leader has emailed to you. Or if you are a licensed organisation, it might be a route that someone's submitting to you as part of their expedition notification, and this is a good way to do that without printing and photocopying lots of maps. So as you can see, the route appears. We have the thick green line this time. We might want to change that, so you could change it to pink or purple or blue, whatever colour you want. And a good point from last night, you can see that the line here is quite thick and it's quite hard to see what's underneath. So we'll reduce the thickness of the line and the transparency just to make it clear what is underneath the map and helpful for the young people following their route. And that's important. If you click anywhere on the map, you drop a pinpoint down, so be careful not to click on the map unintentionally like I've just done, but you can always undo it. So from your map, you can see that my route currently ends here. And what we're going to do is we're going to extend the route on to show you how to drop pins and how to create more waypoints. So where the route is following a path, you need to be quite careful that you drop your pins fairly close together to follow the curve of the path. If you just go for a pin in a rough approximation, you get a straight line between the two. It doesn't follow the path for you, so you need to click along and follow your path. But for example, here it's perfectly straight, so you can just pop a much longer section in. And these aren't all these little points that I'm dropping aren't going to appear in your route card, so don't worry that you're dropping in hundreds of pins and you're going to have a route card with all of these points on them. So what you want to do is obviously you want to have 8-9 points during the day, which are going to be your checkpoints, which will appear on your route card. And it's easiest to do this as you go along rather than trying to go backwards and pop in your checkpoints at a later stage. So I want this one to be a checkpoint on the beach. So pop in your next point, and on your little summary here to the left hand side, your waypoint 52, which is the last one you've just dropped down. If you click your little downwards arrow, it'll display the information and you can edit that waypoint. You'll be presented with this little edit box, and then you'll pop in your description of that point. So in this case, it will be Murloc. And then your leg description. So, and this is your leg description that will appear in the route card. So for example, from the car park at follow the promenade, and then join the beach beside the So you want that to be quite detailed, and click save. And what has happened now, and I'll take you back to the previous one. So you can see all of these little waypoints are circles, and circles will not appear on your route card. But the one I've just changed to a checkpoint has turned into a little diamond, and it's only the little diamonds that will appear on your route card, not all of the individual waypoints. And so you can keep going. And so on. Your final one will always be a checkpoint because that will be your finish point. So the last one you put down will always be a checkpoint. And again, it's important to remember to follow the curve where you're plotting the route. So what we now have is a route that starts here at Millmore. You can see the route and ends just outside Dundrum. What you have here then on the left hand side, it shows you as you drop your waypoints, it keeps a running total of rough timings and your distance. There's the summary of your waypoints, and again you can look at any of these, you can check any of them. If you feel you need to add in more checkpoints, you can go back and edit your waypoints to turn them into checkpoints. And down here at the bottom you have your little summary of your height gain and height loss as your day progresses. So plotting the route, as you can see, is not difficult at all. It's just a case of dropping your waypoints. And what you can then use this for is to produce your route card. So if you click up here at the top of the screen, the option route card, you'll be presented with a form to fill in. So you add in the aim of the expedition, whatever the young people have chosen. I've already filled this in for you. The names of the young people in the team as you want them to appear on the route card. The name and group, the name of the group and contact details, the supervisor's name and contact number, the team name, your setting out time, the date of the expedition, which day, so 1 of 3 or 1 of 4, or whatever the case may be, the expedition level, and again you've got your drop down options, and the speed. So you can adjust the speed according to your team, and obviously by the time you come to producing a route card, you should know roughly what speed your team will be walking at. So we'll have this team going at 3.5 kilometers an hour. And then what you get below here is your route breakdown, which will form your route card. And that's based only on the checkpoints from your route, not all of your waypoints. So you'll see what you get. You get your grid reference, which is automatically filled in for you. You get your description of the place, which you will have typed in when you've edited your waypoint to make it a checkpoint. So again, go for something that's clear and obvious. Don't be calling these checkpoint 1, checkpoint 2, checkpoint 3. Go for proper place names that tie up to your map and that the young people can identify on the ground. The bearing needs to be manually calculated, so the system doesn't work out bearings for you. So again, that's a classroom exercise to go through this and work out your bearings, and you need to enter those in on your route card. And again, you can do what you normally do for your bearings, whether you want to go for cardinal points or whether you want to have proper bearings, depending again on the level of the team. I suppose at bronze level we would tend to see cardinal points, but then come silver and gold we tend to see proper bearings. It automatically calculates your distance. It automatically calculates your height climbed, works out the time for the journey, and it does allow time for height gain, so it works that out for you as well. You can manually input time for your project work, so if the young people are doing work towards their aim, you can build that in here again manually, and you can manually add in your time for rests. And as you do that, it automatically adjusts the total leg duration. So if you want to up that for 20, and it has the knock-on effect then across the board. Okay, your leg description again is taken from that little information box that you've edited your checkpoint with, but you have the option here if you want to overtype that with something a bit more detailed, or whatever extra information you want to put in, you can do now. You have the option to put in your escape notes, so return to car park or continue on to next checkpoint, whatever the instructions are going to be. And if you have a separate activity plan that has already been produced, you can paste it in here and it all appears on the one route card without having to have multiple pieces of paper all laminated and stapled together. It just keeps everything nice and tidy and together for you. So if you do all this and you get to the bottom, it totals up your route for you, works out your timings, and if you get here and you decide, goodness, that's an awfully long day, you can go back and adjust your project work and your rests. You can go back and adjust your speed, your setting out time, whatever you want to do. And if you adjust your setting out time, it automatically carries forward and adjusts your timings for the remainder of the day as well. You can come back in and out of this as often as you want to. So whenever you hit save, if you go back and add more into the route then, or edit the route and come back in here, it'll do all the adjustments for you. And again, just remember to click save before you come out of it. And up here at the top, if you click on route card again, it just takes you back to your main screen.
James, now
yes,
that you're
Karen.
back on the main screen,
Yeah.
Amanda has asked if we can look at converting the waypoint again to the checkpoint, just to revise how you do that.
Sure. Yep. That was everybody's favorite question last night, and I have to say, it's the thing that took me the longest to kind of get the hang off as well. So we'll zoom in. So the reason why I'm saying it's easiest to do this as you go along. You can do it at a later stage, but what you need to do then is count back the number of waypoints to find the one that you want to edit, and it gets awfully confusing trying to count back like 35 or 40 waypoints. And whenever I have done it that way, you get there in the end, but I usually find I end up one out every time, and I end up having to adjust it. So again, easier to do it as you go along. So Amanda, if you have your final point, which is here, and go ahead and drop your next one, come back to the one that you want to edit to a checkpoint. So we'll go for this one here. So you know that that's 63 is the one you've just dropped. The previous one's going to be 62. Drop the little downwards arrow, and that will give you the option to edit the waypoint. You then get the little information box. So again, name your checkpoint. So because this isn't really anywhere, we'll go beside of the road, and add in your description, whatever you want it to be. So leave the car park and follow the road. Here, Karen scream that requires a comma, but we'll sort that out later. So that's whenever you click save, then that converts your checkpoint, no, your waypoint into a checkpoint, and then you can keep going. So if anybody wants me to show that again towards the end, feel free to shout. I think I showed it about 5 times last night. So yep, so happy to show it again. So we're back on the main screen. You can see your summary of your route. And what we're going to do now is print this, and it will allow you to see the map option that you can print and the route option that you can print. So from the print button, this little print screen will appear, and we're going to start with the map. So you wanted to show the checkpoints on the map. You've got your options whether you want to go for A3 or A4, landscape or portrait, and again you'll want to go with whatever works best for your printing capability. And I would probably go in this case for A3 landscape. You then do your print preview, and it will produce the map for you. Just takes a few seconds. So I know it's hard to see on the screen now, but what you get is your map, and it's very faint on the screen, but the line is there with the little, just where my mouse is, you can see the little purple checkpoints and your finish point. So it is there, it's faint on the screen. And sometimes it does run to 2 pages. So if the route doesn't, it doesn't squeeze it to fit onto 1 page, sometimes you need to print it onto 2. So that's your option for printing your map. You've got the option either to print it there then, or save it as a PDF and print it at a later stage. And then you have the option also to produce and print your route card. So if you change this to route card only, again, I tend to go for A4 landscape. It's what we're used to, and do your print preview. And from this point, it will produce your route card for you. And if you run that off to a PDF, it should open on your screen. And you can see here the level of detail you get on your route card, and it's just the route card we're all used to. So it gives you your start point, your bearing distance, height climbed, journey time, time for your project work and your rest, total leg, your ETA, your leg description, your escape notes. And you can see it also builds in over here the activity for your aim, so it doesn't knock it onto the back of the route card. It keeps it all on the one side, which is hopefully helpful. Again, if you add more than 5 or 6 points, it just runs onto a second page for you. So don't worry about trying to squeeze it onto 1 page. You can run to a second page if you have to. And again, it'll depend on your route and how complicated it is, whether you need to run over more than 1 route card. So it's important to say as well at this stage that you need to do 1 map per day. So you can't continue on them with day 2 and day 3 on the same map. You need to do a separate map for each day of the expedition. So hopefully that has given you a broad overview of how you operate the system. Okay.
James, with a couple of questions.
Go for it, Karen.
So Mike asked, what scale does the map print out at? Okay,
so the map will never print out in a very true scale, because you're working with home printers and there's no way to guarantee that it all prints out to a true scale. So that's why it's important to make sure that your young people have a proper map in their bag for anything that they need to do. If they want to take a bearing, or if they want to do anything very technical, this is just a good overview of their route and not a very technical map that they've printed out. I can check I will check for you and cover that in my follow-up email, what the closest approximation is that it prints out at, but it is only an approximation. It's never a very accurate scale, but I'll let you know in the follow-up email.
And also Liz has asked, and I know I should know this, can the route card be saved as a Word doc?
Ooh, don't think so. No. So let me try that again. I don't think so is the answer. So if I print that and do it for landscape, just the route card, print preview, let me double check. No, it only allows you to print it to a PDF, so it doesn't produce a Word document for you. That's just how the system's set up. So unfortunately not. No, it's just a PDF.
Okay, thank you. And Robert, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to come in and say Nitro Pro, which I don't think it's that expensive because I know we're using it now with Network Rail as a company, and that prints and converts PDF beautifully to Excel or to Word documents, and including all the formatting as well, because I'm using it quite a lot at the moment with work to do some quite complex documents.
Could you pop the name of that into the chat for us?
Yep, no problem.
I like the sound of that for my day-to-day work anyway, so that would be great. Thank you very much.
And a last one, James, because I'm not sure what Robin is asking. So he has said, just spot that the waypoint changes when clicked on route option. And I wonder, with that in mind, might it be easier to see the map if we change the style of the line? Because it may be easier to see the waypoints and so forth as well, James.
If I make it thicker, Karen, and darker?
Yes, please. It's maybe just my eyesight, mind you.
What I'm saying,
yeah.
what I've spotted, I used it last couple of years ago for the Lake District, so I've used it. But when you were talking about counting back, I basically just followed your route and put 17 points on. When you were trying to figure out which one, when you click on the waypoint, so waypoint 11, it actually changes on your map to the colour. If you go to your map and just pick the waypoints.
Yeah,
and
I see that.
On the left-hand side, pick one of them. And you were saying about having to count back.
Yeah,
it actually does change.
Brilliant.
The map.
Yeah, I see that. So if that's fine. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. So I have been counting for my own routes. Really helpful.
Yeah. Top the class, Robin. Thank you.
So yeah, I'll just demonstrate that actually. So if we want to select waypoint 42, you can see there it comes up in blue, and that's brilliant. It helps you find, if you trial and error to find the right one, but at least you can see where you're going. Excellent. Thank you very much, Robin.
Welcome.
So that's an overview of how you can use the system as an adult. And one of the things we're really keen to stress is expedition planning should at all times be the part of the young people's training and something that they should be taking a lead in. They should be doing their own route planning, and we would never expect young people to be handed a pre-planned or pre-made route. That is not in the spirit of doing your DV. So we also make this tool available for young people to enable them to do their own plotting, and then they can share their route with you as the leader, and you can check it and make sure you're happy with it. And I'm going to log out now as the leader and show you where the young people find it in their account, which is helpful. So if you just save your route card and exit it, it'll warn you again, if you haven't saved it, you will lose your work. And I'm going to sign out as the leader. So when your participants log into eDAV, their screen is slightly different. So this is our fictitious young person this evening. And when Julie logs into her account, in her bronze DAV here, she has the option under her expedition section to access mapping. And again, it works exactly the same. So it opens up the map and just does exactly the same thing as I've demonstrated for you. However, they have an additional feature which I wasn't able to demonstrate yesterday, so you're getting the better version here. So once the young person has saved the map and they're happy with it, they have the option to send it to you through the system rather than having to save the GPX file and send it to you a different way. So if they select their map, use their leader should appear in their little drop-down option, and they can send the map, and that will appear in your alerts in eDAV. So that will come straight through to you in the system, and you can check their route on your mapping tool, rather than them having to download and save a GPX file and email it across to you and you upload it. It should just all come through automatically. So that option's there for young people to be able to send their map to you as part of their training. So with that, I think that brings us to the end kind of the overview of the system. Is there anything anybody else would like to ask? Might not have the answer, but feel free to shout, and we can have a look at some of the other options if you want. Have we any questions, Karen, in the chat?
No, you're all clear at the moment, James.
Okay. Okay, well, if nobody has any questions, I'm going to stop the recording.